Dreamcast games on the Switch. Okay, I'll bite. I decided to sit this one out for two reasons. One, as you know, I'm currently recovering from shoulder surgery, so I'm kind of laying low. There's a lot of breaking gaming news that I can't really be on top of right now. I'm trying to chill for the next couple of weeks until I can fully use my arm. Well, that's going to be months from now, but anyway, this is something that came into my radar that I was very, very excited about, but it was a little thin on details for the time being, so I decided to, well, you know, timing being what it is, me recovering from shoulder surgery and all, I'm like, I'm gonna wait a few days and see how this develops and see if there's anything new to add to it, and then when I'm feeling a little bit better, I'll cover it. Unfortunately, some 6 days into this, there hasn't been a whole lot more that has been said outside of the original story, so I guess now is the time to talk about it. In a recent interview with Famitsu, one of the most prestigious video game publications in Japan, Sega said that the Switch was actually pretty close to running Dreamcast games via emulation, and they still have the source code for a lot of those games, so they could go either way if they wanted to bring these titles to Nintendo's portable via emulation or a straight up port or remake, which is probably a better option because then they can actually adapt those games to the control scheme on the Nintendo Switch. But honestly, I would take either one at this point. The Dreamcast, when it first came out, I couldn't afford it, so its library is mostly still kind of unknown to me. I know the classics, but I haven't really delved into them as much as I probably should have. So the idea of these games being ported to the Switch, again, whether it's emulation or a straight up remake, it's really interesting to me. I'm actually very excited for this. Even though I've been a Nintendo guy my whole life, Sega was always kind of like in my peripherals. I was never much of a Sega guy, but this is very exciting. There are a lot of gems in the Dreamcast library that, well, the Dreamcast unfortunately died just too young. A lot of people couldn't appreciate these games, and it would be fantastic if a good chunk of us could finally play these games. Now, this is interesting for a few reasons. First, as you know, we've all been pretty disappointed with Nintendo due to the lackluster offerings of the Nintendo Switch Online service. At first, we all thought that we'd be getting a lot of their back catalog. This would be, we assumed, the driving force behind this service. When they said that they were going to axe the Virtual Console and offer these retro gaming experiences through Nintendo Switch Online, we thought, alright, fine, a Netflix of retro games, I'm in. And then they kind of pulled the rug from under us by saying that they're going to focus on NES titles for the time being. Something that I bet your wristwatch can run NES games by now. Nobody, I'm gonna catch flack for this, but nobody truly cares that much about NES games. I'm sorry. We wanted SNES games, but Nintendo, in their infinite wisdom, thought that we don't deserve it? I guess. I'm not sure exactly what's the rationale behind it. I know there's going to be a lot of Nintendo apologists in my comments to try to give their idea of why Nintendo would do this. I'm just gonna say, I appreciate the input and I love your guys' feedback, but I don't buy it. We should be able to play Super Nintendo games on this thing without having to mod it. And you know what's kind of contradictory? At the same time I'm saying this, even emulating SNES games is kind of old hat by now. I've been able to emulate these things since the late 90s, and I've been doing it portably since the PSP was originally hacked back in, I want to say 2005. That's when I bought my first one, and I bought it explicitly to mod so I could play Super Nintendo games on the go. So even though I'm here asking for SNES games on the Switch Online, it's the 16-bit generation. I've done it to death. It'd be nice to have it on the Switch, especially considering, you know, with the Joy-Cons, you could be able to detach them and you could play two-player SNES games impromptu, wherever you go with your buddies. It would be great to have, but even I have to admit that by now, in 2018, SNES is just, I feel like I've played every single SNES game that was worth playing by now. So the idea of now moving on to the Dreamcast library I'm super in. I'm very excited for this. Now, of course, this is very early stages yet. We shouldn't get our hopes up too much, but it's still very exciting. The idea of playing portable Dreamcast games on the Switch, I want to see this happening more so than SNES games. I swear to God. It goes to show Sega is going to be putting a lot of weight behind their Sega Ages line. For those who don't know, Sega Ages is a series of re-releases and compilations. They've been putting out these Sega Genesis games forever on every single console you can think of. And of course, Sega Ages is going to be present on the Switch. It already is, but from what I can tell, there's only 2 games for it right now. Sonic the Hedgehog, of course, a classic, and Thunder Force 4, which in North America was known as Lightning Force Quest for the Dark Star. Not my cup of tea like most games on the Sega Genesis, but hey, more retro games on the Switch, I welcome that. I'm going to be keeping my ear to the ground when it comes to this story. I am so excited about the possibility of playing Dreamcast games on my Nintendo Switch. This, again, being a library, I didn't have that much of an opportunity to explore outside of the games everybody played, like Sonic Adventure, Crazy Taxi, stuff like that. Now, I want to know from you, the Dreamcast owners in the crowd, what are the, let's say, top 5 games that would be awesome to have on the Nintendo Switch? And let's exclude the obvious choices like, you know, Crazy Taxi, Sonic Adventure, because that's the one that even I, somebody who's pretty ignorant of the library, can quote. I want to hear some, let's say, some hidden gems. Let me know in the comments down below. As always, let me know where you're from. I'm always very curious to find out where you guys are watching these videos from. Follow me on social media. My links are down in the description. I'm always very eager to hear from you guys. I'm very active over there, both Instagram and Twitter. So you can always reach me there. And that's all the time I have for today. I'm Izzy, and I'm done.